when I think of a really good partnership, I think of there are just things happening that fire on all cylinders. The sales teams are really excited to work together because they know they're going to solve a pain point and solve a problem for their clients together. One sales team is really excited about offering the solution for the other sales team. The other sales team is really excited to maybe get a new pipeline, maybe to meet new account executives that they didn't know before in the industry. And so there's got to be buzz and excitement around what you're doing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO of MileMarker. And today I am joined by Rachel Cameron. Rachel is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at DPL Financial Partners. She is also a mom of two incredible kids, and she's a Jacksonville native. And from what I understand, a legendary Girl Scout troop leader, which I think we're going to spend some time talking about today. Rachel and I have traversed this industry, working together at some points on strategic partnerships, but also as partners in different realms before. She's got a lot of insight to drop on partnerships and what it takes to have successful partnerships. So Rachel, thanks for joining the show and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Always a pleasure. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So Rachel, I like to start most of these shows off with understanding how people got into our little corner of the world, our industry. And the way we frame it up is I like to ask what your money moment was, because I've found that most people end up working in this industry because they had some experience, with financial services, with money, with personal finance, or something along those lines that led them to want to get involved in this space. So tell us, what is your money moment?
My money moment's kind of interesting. I did not anticipate working in financial services at all. My degree is actually in psychology, and it's a science degree in psychology. So I got into working at Merrill Lynch because shortly after college, I dog sat for a VP at Merrill Lynch. She was a family friend, and she liked my work ethic and recruited me to be on her team. And so I led some operations teams in Merrill Lynch's fund administration part of the business. There's a big corporate campus in Jacksonville. And so I spent 2 years at Merrill Lynch just being a supervisor on different operations teams within. At Merrill, I was able to get my 7. They had some incentives for earning your 7 and just getting that business acumen. And Black Diamond Performance Reporting was just down the street. They were recruiting a bunch of people from Merrill and other offices around Jacksonville. And I got a referral from one of my old coworkers to start at Black Diamond. And so started out over there, spent 8 years at Black Diamond, grew up in their client service team, and then eventually left as the head of the integration network.
Okay, that's a great money moment. Yeah. So my first question based off of what you said is I actually think a conversation that's trending, not only on this podcast, but that I'm having when I'm out talking to firms, talking to different people, is what it takes to have great service nowadays. And so you growing up in the client service organization at Black Diamond, what do you think it takes nowadays to provide great service? I actually know that's something that Black Diamond kind of prides itself on is, everybody has a client service person that you're going to work with. They're trying to provide as much of a white glove atmosphere as you can. They really want to sell service, all of that fun stuff. But for you, where you sat, how you've experienced it, how you bring it to partnerships, what makes up great service? Because it can feel kind of squishy.
Yeah, I love that question. I'm really passionate about providing great service. I think for me, it really boils down to 2 things. One, I always want to make things easy for the other person. So you really have to know who you're talking to. Is it an advisor that just wants the bullet? Am I, even now in my current role, am I providing a recap to someone on the executive team and they want to make sure that you know what you have going on and just need to see the high level? Or are you speaking to someone more in a operations or administrative capacity and they really need to understand and know the details? So it's really tailoring your message and always making it easy for the other person to digest. And then the other side of it is you really just need to pay attention. Pay attention to who you're talking to, pay attention to what's going on around you. I have an analogy that I've given to different service teams that I've helped trained over the years, which is if you move to a new city, you're not just going to want to know how to drive from your home to your workplace or from your home to the grocery store. You're probably going to joyride a little bit and learn your neighborhood and maybe get familiar with streets that you don't always drive on just so that you can have some context or maybe a recollection of a really cool restaurant that you passed by or a neat park that you want to visit. And in the workplace, it's very similar. Get to know your surroundings and just pay attention so that you, whenever you're faced with something new, you have a recollection of who you can talk to, who you can ask a question to, who you can call on as a resource. And you may not know the answer through and through, but just having some knowledge base of getting back to them and doing it quickly and just doing what you say you're going to do is really important.
I like how you use that analogy of moving to a new city, because I think one thing I would synthesize from what you said is also being knowledgeable. So not only paying attention, but being knowledgeable enough to help. Because I also think one of the challenges that's happening is as these firms are getting bigger, as these technology companies are getting bigger, as everybody's getting bigger, the knowledge is getting more and more specialized. So you might call somebody to get a question answered and they go, well, I got to actually hand you to this person. And then they got to hand you to that person. And then all of a sudden you don't know how to get back in touch with the person who actually helped solve your problem originally. Whereas I do think great service, kind of what you're saying, is if you know the neighborhood, if you pay attention, not just to what your client needs or your partner needs, but also what the other people in your organization are doing, you can know enough to be dangerous to really serve people and provide knowledge there. And that comes from joyriding, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And having the care to see it through, making sure that if you do need to pass it over to someone else, that their needs are being met if you can't see it through yourself. So just that follow up and making sure that they've had a good experience with the whole company, not just with their interaction with you.
Yeah, that's good. With the whole company, not just with you, I think is really good because, people get promoted, people get different jobs, people get, so it might not always be you who you're working with, right? Even in a lot of the RIAs that we're talking to, that client service person that the clients might love working with, they might get promoted to be running a team of client service people, and you may not be talking to them anymore. So I think that's great. Is how do we help you have a great experience with the company as a whole? Which is a good segue into partnerships, kind of your forte, one of the niches that you've really invested in and you've gotten good at. I'm going to ask this question in a couple of lanes to let you take with it what you want. But, the audience of the Connected Advisor is growing RIA firms, but also I think some of the technology companies in our space. So just giving you a heads up, I want to ask about what partnerships look like between technology companies. And then I want to ask you about how RIAs can build better partnerships. So we'll do that second. I'll let you think about that a little bit. But with technology companies, I think, especially at MileMarker, we hear about the need for integration, all of that stuff. But I think partnership goes beyond just integrating, right? So when you hear partnership in our space, what do you think?
Ooh, partnership in our space. Well, to your point, it can mean a lot of different things. I have experience with companies kind of touting a deep, seamless, integrated partnership, but all that really is going on under the hood is a single sign-on.
Yep. Everybody's familiar with that. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, that can work for sure and make someone's life easier. When I think of a really good partnership, I think of there are just things happening that fire on all cylinders. The sales teams are really excited to work together because they know they're going to solve a pain point and solve a problem for their clients together. And one sales team is really excited about offering the solution for the other sales team. The other sales team is really excited to maybe get a new pipeline, maybe to meet new account executives that they didn't know before in the industry. And so there's got to be buzz and excitement around what you're doing. Product teams learning from each other, different product managers, how things work, how you're doing. So if we're firing on all cylinders and the metrics are really, really tight to know the why behind why you're doing the partnership, what's the goal of it, and that there's joint consideration for how success is measured and won, then you've got a really good thing going. And you don't just have, something on paper that it's just nice to talk about, but no one's really making sure it works in practice.
I love that. And I think there's a theme based off of both of your answers so far, which is, kind of a care factor.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, what popped into my mind when I heard you saying that is a lot of companies in our space will have dozens of quote unquote partners, right? But there's no way that you can successfully have dozens of deep partnerships, right? Or maybe you can, I don't know, but walk us
Right.
through that. Like, are companies really only having a handful of true quote unquote partnerships that you're talking about there, where the sales
Yeah.
teams are really aligned, the RM teams are aligned, the product teams are aligned, and we're really trying to build a 1+1=4 situation here versus, hey, I know that our clients use, these things and I have to have some way of them working so that the clients are getting, so I guess my question is it possible to have dozens of true partnerships, or are you really only going to have a couple of high quality ones?
Well, the high quality ones, I think we both know, are very few and far between, where things are really firing on all cylinders. And you have the sales connection going, you have the technology going, you have the executive level buy-in. I think it really is important for the team to define the partnership. So is it a true partnership where you are, like we talked about, working on all the levels, or is it just an integration partnership where this company has data that I want to consume, I'm connecting to their data source, and we are allowing something that's difficult to replicate in our system just to make it easy for the client. So a really good example of that is just, integrated softwares that have a lot of different account types that they are reconciling into their system. And, you don't have to reconcile data in two different places. You're kind of getting it from one source and you can let that flow out. Or third type is it just an alliance? So are you just doing a marketing partnership together where maybe you are doing a webinar and you're just trying to cross pollinate a little bit and comparing client lists? I think it's really important to define the different categories of partnership and just really staying true to what that is. And I'm also in partnerships a really big fan of a crawl, walk, run strategy. We've kind of talked about crawl, walk, run without defining it that way, where maybe you're crawling and starting with an alliance. You're just kind of getting to know each other. You're kind of dipping your toes in the water. Walking together, you're starting to maybe do that technology integration, something that's low lift, but you don't really have to train sales teams on what's going on or train sales teams to know how to speak each other's language and really get that deep connection. But running is when things are really firing on all cylinders. And so I think as a company, if you really want partners that you're running with, you have to be okay with the slow burn of a crawl, walk, run and really building to getting to that place that you're in lockstep with the partner and you're truly winning together.
Yeah, that's good. I think words matter, right? So
Mhm.
not everything can be a partnership. Using phrases like an alliance or things like that are also good too, because you could probably have a lot of alliances, but maybe only a handful of partners. I think that's really good. So moving on to talk about how RIA firms can use partnerships. I think a lot of us know that RIAs will try to align with centers of influence like CPAs, like attorneys, like these places where they can get referrals. But, number one, I'd love to hear you talk about, if you went into an RIA, how would you build out a partnership program, with some of these COIs,
Mhm.
right? And then, piggybacking off of what we just talked about, should they go after partnering with a bunch of CPAs and a bunch of attorneys and stuff like that? Or should they try and find a small handful and go really deep with that small handful?
Oh, that's a really good question. And the best answer to every question is it depends. uh, it really does depend on. So I think the best partnerships is one that is well educated. So if you are going in and just kind of are wanting to work with everyone who wants to work with you, and you're willing to sign anyone up just to kind of get a logo spray out there, then you're really not getting that deep education unless you're really willing to invest in a partner team where they can spend time with every source to do that. So if I were to build a team where the goal was to truly get referrals and to truly have those partners or alliances understand our value prop, I would definitely start slow and be very intentional to sign the right partner. Which ones are bought into what we're doing and are excited to talk with us about their client base? Who might be referring clients without even an agreement in place? If it's just kind of like a natural thing that they're excited to talk about, and even without an incentive behind it, then you know that you're kind of getting the wheels turning with the right partner that is excited about what you're doing. And it's just a cherry on top for you to grow together.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
So I think it's all well and good to sign partnerships, to have partners, even if they're real ones, not, just spraying logos out there or anything. But I think a challenge that a lot of companies have is, how do we measure the success of a partnership? Right. And I think you talked about that a little bit. Like, well, if the goal is getting referrals, right? That was a phrase you said in that last answer. Mm-hmm. So how do you help if I'm a company in the financial advisor technology space or something like that, and I'm new and I'm getting some partnerships with some of the prominent names? Like, what are some of the metrics that you have seen in the past that measure the success of partnerships, and how do you do that well?
Well, you really need to try to replicate the sales team in a way. So you kind of have to go back and ask the sales team, like, hey, if I want to sign 100 firms or 100 clients from this partnership, what does my pipeline need to look like? How many leads do I need to generate to be able to get that? And if a partnership is working well, then you will sign higher quality leads in a shorter amount of time. So if the sales team normally, needs 300 leads working in the pipeline at all times to be able to sign, I don't know, I'm just throwing numbers out there now, like 20 clients a month or something, then for a partnership, you probably don't need that many leads if they're truly being referred. You just kind of have to go back. And the fun part about partnerships for me is when you're doing different marketing activities, you really do get to trial and error a lot of different strategies in order to see what works well. Do we have a lot of people coming to this webinar? Do we have people that are kind of clicking on it from this email? Is the email worded right? You get to kind of harp on little nuances to make sure that the work that you're doing is seeing good results. But ultimately defining, in a referral, if you want to get more members and higher quality members, then you have to know, again, just what does that mean? How do I get these? What does the pipeline need to look like? And then after I get the members, what's my runway to actually start seeing results from this? And is my typical runway 6 months, and I'm expecting this partner to maybe get it down to 2, 3, 4 months? And if that's working, then you know that the influence from the two partners to really make a difference with that account, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well said. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but I'm sure you'll be able to handle it. So when I heard you, talking through that a little bit, I was like, man, this is really good, but it's also kind of conceptual. So could you give us what's an example of a really good kind of partnership strategy that you put in place that was maybe one of your most effective at achieving metrics, right? Did you have like a webinar strategy that you ran with partners, or kind of give us a case study, if you will, on something that pops into your mind of like, hey, this killed it. It was really successful, and here's how we set it up. Tell us that story.
Ooh, I like that. You are putting me on the spot because I don't normally have great recall for telling stories. So in the last company I worked for, Notarize, we launched a partnership with FedEx Office, and we saw really, really great early success with them. And that was just, getting transactions. And the thing that we really focused on before we launched was training their internal teams on who we are and what we did and how we work, and being very intentional to make sure that we had that internal training happening and getting that sign off, getting materials collected, stored, I think really helped with the early success of it. Because as soon as we made that external announcement and there were customers that were wanting that solution, we were able to get success really quickly because people already knew what to do. They already knew how we worked. They knew those teams, kind of going back to service, like you knew what roads you had to drive on. Like you were already familiar with the road as being like at the partner store. One of the mistakes that I made early on in my career was to launch the partner and then kind of scramble to make sure that service teams knew what the partnership was and what it did. You're kind of retroactively answering a lot of questions, but making that go in the reverse order to do all of your internal training before the external announcement came really helped people prepare, and you could hit the ground running as soon as the external launch was done. So don't ignore all that pre-work before the launch happens. After the launch, you should, for the most part, be sitting pretty with your partnership and just letting all the work that you did before, kind of speak for itself with how things are going to go.
So I'm glad I asked that question because, as my friend Tyrone Ross would say, I think you just dropped a bunch of free jewelry on the ground, and the people need to go pick that up. I think that's right. I think your statement there of it's very natural to go get excited about a partnership, use momentum, sign it, launch it, and then go try to figure out how to align your team on this great new partnership that we've launched. It's going to be a game changer for the company. I can't believe it, right? If you're an RIA, we just signed a partnership with a national CPA firm. They've got thousands and thousands of clients that they're going to be referring to us. Let's go make it happen. Or if you're a fintech company, hey, we just signed a partnership with a huge company who's going to refer us a ton of business. But you're totally right that if you do all of that without teeing up the team on how to be successful, well, okay, sounds like a great partnership. What do we do when we get a referral? Like, how do we get referrals? Who are they sending them to? Is everybody connected to the sales team? Are they coming in through a shared inbox? Like, how does all of this, do we have a landing page? Like, what's
Absolutely.
the deal?
And it's the worst thing in the world to have someone on your PR team write a press release about this partnership that is, to your point, a game changer, and it's going to do all this stuff for the company. Client calls their service rep and they're like, hey, how do I use this? And the service rep is like, what are you talking about? and then I didn't even know that we made an announcement this past week. So that's the worst thing in the world, to have the disconnect between, the excitement that maybe your frontline team is expressing versus the people that are actually servicing your clients.
Yeah, that's excellent. Really, really good. So, okay, I want to pivot a little bit away from industry stuff, partnership stuff. In the opener, I talked about your legendary Girl Scout troop leading status. Just tell us a little bit about, parallels, lessons you've learned from leading a Girl Scout troop to being successful in what you're doing in your day job.
Yeah, I'm having so much fun leading this troop. All the girls are little angels. We have 32 girls in our troop, which is absurdly large for a Girl Scout troop.
What's an average Girl Scout troop size for those who don't know?
Well, usually you only have one level, so girls in the same grade. And usually it's somewhere maybe between 5 and 12 girls.
Okay.
We have multi-level. Our largest level is our kindergarten first grade. There's 15 girls there. Then we have second and third grade. Those are brownies. We have 10 girls there. 5 fourth and fifth graders, those are juniors. And then we have 2 cadets who are sixth grade. So It's all multi-level. I took over the troop from a girlfriend of mine who was just struggling with just getting burnt out. There's a lot of work to do in a Girl Scout troop. You really are running your own little business, which is why I really like it. Like, you have your own little bank account, you earn money fundraising, doing Girl Scout cookies, and then you decide on how you spend the money that you fundraise within your troop. So you can go camping, you can go on a trip, you can do all kinds of different stuff. So the thing that I have enjoyed the most and have found parallels with work is just obviously the organizational leadership. You have to be really organized, and just all the different processes that you have in place just to run the troop is really similar to just running a team. I'm having to train and communicate parents on what it is that we're doing, being very, very repetitive with parents, which is really the mark of a really great leader. How patient are they with kind of expressing the same message over and over? I'm sure with Mile Marker, you've probably had the same conversation hundreds, if not thousands of times with people, and people still don't know what you do. Not to say that it's a confusing message or anything.
No. Yep.
You can often just, talk about a new initiative or the goal of what you're doing until you're blue in the face and someone's missing some of the point. That I find with 32 girls and 30 parents that I interface with, I'm being very repetitive until people get it. But it's really great because the parents are awesome and we're really seeing improvements with the girls. One of the girls, we're in the middle of Girl Scout cookie season, but this girl, I believe she's in third grade. And so she's a brownie and this is her first time selling cookies. And she has a stutter. And because of her stutter, she can be really anxious with speaking to people and just having confidence in her voice. And in our Girl Scout program, we want to instill courage, confidence, and character in the girls. And Girl Scout cookies is one of the main ways that we do that. So this girl had a very modest goal of 250 cookie boxes and to sell. And her dad and her spent all weekend at a certain spot in our historic district where we live. And just all the foot traffic, she sold out of all 250 boxes. And the dad was telling me that this time last year, the girl would not have spoken out in a group of other people. Whenever she's brought around other adults, she kind of goes into a little corner and just kind of like plays with whatever kind of trinket or doll she brought. With selling cookies, she was out there. She was asking for sales. She was getting after it. She was counting her money. She was just, her courage and confidence just really blossomed in the process. And that's really what I love to see because, you know, you're not going to be selling cookies forever, but you do learn that when you get little wins for yourself, it can really help with the confidence building that you have and just the courage that you have to do anything in life. And it just really helps to see that difference in the girls, something that I really, really enjoy.
That's really fun and really cool. I think everybody has this connection to Girl Scout cookies. So I've just got to ask this as a tangential. What is the most popular selling cookie in your troop?
Thin Mints.
Is that like kind of universal across all Girl Scout cookies?
Yeah. So inside baseball with Girl Scout cookies, there's only 2 bakers in all of the US that make all the Girl Scout cookies that are sold. And the 2 bakers have different recipes. So you could have the same cookies that are called different things, but Thin Mints are consistent between both bakers. So that's, I think that's why Thin Mints are so popular. Also, like, who doesn't love a frozen Thin Mint with like an ice cold Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
On a hot summer day.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Thin Mints are incredible. I just didn't know if that was like a regional thing or, you know, if it was universal. I don't really discriminate against any Girl Scout cookies. I love Samoas. I love tagalongs. I love Thin Mints. I mean, I am a Girl Scout cookie buyer and I'm a sucker for, I would have bought cookies from this girl if she was out in my path. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's really cool. I love the courage, confidence, and character. Yeah. Character, courage, confidence in young girls. That's incredible. And I think it's cool that you're doing that. Shifting back to industry stuff, work stuff a little bit, get out your crystal ball for me and tell me what you think the future of the space in the industry looks like from where you sit.
Well, we've talked about these really big companies that are out there, and there's plenty of startups that are trying to solve problems and, you know, develop niches for themselves, which is awesome. I love looking at the KidSys map and just seeing how the industry has grown. My prediction is particular to really large organizations where maybe there are a lot of partners or maybe they've made a lot of acquisitions in the last few years and the platform is just large or it's huge. And it would be impossible for one RIA to use every single solution that a large platform has under their belt. And so I ultimately think that people just want to be told what to do.
Okay. You're going to have to elaborate there a little bit.
Just think about maybe a large company with a huge platform. And just that last example, there's not one RIA, it would be impossible for them to use every solution. And so you're talking to your account executive or whoever, and they're explaining all the different options that you have. Normally someone just says, well, just tell me what you think I should do. Like, what would you do if you were me? That's a really common question. I ask different experts that all the time. Like, what would you do if you were me? Maybe you ask your doctor that or just whatever. There's just all kinds of different options and paths. So I think with large companies, you're going to start to see different paths that you can take where you're literally just told what to do. You need to buy this CRM. You need to use this financial planning that we own or partner with. And you need to use this performance reporting part. And that's it. And if you do that, you're going to see success in this way. And then maybe you can evolve into this next piece of technology that maybe has a little bit more Cadillac features around it. I think we're going to start to see more lanes being built, even within these large platforms, for people to literally be told what to do, maybe their own internal crawl, walk, run strategy with RIAs. Hey, if you're small, start here. But as you grow, you can start to evolve into your software and this, and this. And we're going to help you transition and migrate your assets into these other, more complicated platforms.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction, because what I'll tie that back to, or the way, at least what I heard, is in a lot of industries outside of our space, I would say value-added resellers are very prominent, right? Most people don't go buy their Microsoft directly from, Microsoft. And that's even true in our space. You'll go through like a managed services provider or something along those lines, and they're not only giving you the Microsoft license, but they're providing additional value on top of it. I think some large independent broker-dealers, maybe some large RIA platforms might look a little bit like this, but there is a need for, hey, I am this type of firm. Like, what is the solution that you would just help me pick so I don't have to siphon through all of these different things? And I do think there is going to be a sprout up of, people who are helping, not just consulting, but just like, hey, I've put together 3 packages. Like, if you're this type of firm, you should buy this. If you're this type of firm, you should buy this. And if you're this type of firm, you should buy this. If you don't want to think about it, that's what it looks like. And I think that's a good prediction. Okay, so I'm going to transfer us into the last segment of the show, which is what we call the mile marker minute. So this is like a lightning round session or segment of the show. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. The goal is to try and have all of the questions answered in a minute or less. So are you up for it?
I'm up for it.
First question for you is, where is the best restaurant that you ate in 2023?
Oh, man. That's hard for me, Kyle. One of my favorite restaurants in Jacksonville that I just always leave satisfied is a little ramen place, which we need to go to next time you come. And it's called Karai Bistro.
Okay.
And it is by far, I've been to Aputo in New York. I've been to Momofuku. I've been a lot of different really incredible places around the country. And I really do think that this little ramen place has the best in the,
oh man,
in
there
the
you go.
So, that's probably the best meal, but I eat it few and far between, as you can probably imagine. I'd try to get my stretchy pants on for that meal.
Shout out Jacksonville, Florida's ramen scene.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Is double dipping at a party ever acceptable?
No.
Oh, I love it. Best book you read in 2023?
Best book I read. Well, I really love memoirs. I know it's not really a business book question. I can give that answer, but I'll probably go over a minute. But my favorite book I read last year was a memoir called Crying in H Mart. It was about a woman who was losing her mom to cancer, and her mom is Korean and she's Korean. And so it just talked about how she bonded with her mother as she was dying through the food that she cooked for her, which as a half Italian woman, I really related to that, how food is really central to family. And it was just a beautiful and beautifully written story.
Crying in H Mart. Okay, last question. What is an industry conference that you look forward to every year? Your favorite one to go to?
Oh, I got to go to Future Proof last year for the first time, and that really blew me away. I really love attending things in our little corner of the world and this small pond industry that we're in. And just that's truly an event that you can just pick up and probably put in any other industry, and it would blow people's minds all the same.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great for just our industry. It was just great in general, just the whole event and the experiences. So definitely Future Proof. I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to going back to.
Very cool. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for taking some time out to come on the Connected Advisor to share some of the free jewelry that you dropped on building great partnerships, on providing great service, and the Inside Baseball and Girl Scout cookies. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad you came.
Thank you, Kyle. Always a pleasure. Good talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. All right, everybody. That's been another episode of the Connected Advisor. Please make sure to like this wherever you're listening to a podcast, and click the follow if you're on Spotify, or subscribe on any other platform so that you can know when we show up in your ears for the next one. And we'll see you soon. Thanks.